You are listening to The Robert Scott Bell Show.
Check out a sweet offer that my friends at Better Way Health give. This is an immune-boosting supplement that you can't get anywhere else.
Beta-glucan activates and enhances your immune response to invaders.
These things are brilliant for modulating the immune system.
Someone has a need for help in supporting their immune system, I'm looking at the glucan product.
It's amazing, and there's been an enormous amount of research done on this.
It's the most studied immunomodulator on Earth, with over 14,000 published studies referencing beta-glucan, and it's currently being tested in roughly 100 clinical trials.
If you like your dietary supplements with validated science, there's nothing that has more behind it than the beta-1 3D glucan from Better Way Health.
Probably the most heavily researched substances that I'm aware of that modulates the immune system.
It rebuilds your immune system.
Consistency and quality are everything.
Here, you want to see my supplement drawer? Here it is. Get ready.
I was putting together my research and I tripped on this supplement called beta-glucan.
There it is. It's very small. I take beta-glucans, immune booster.
You don't have to worry that you're overstimulating the immune system. We have been just amazed.
I take like 2 a day from Better Way Health.
It's been tested against about 36 other immune-boosting products and found to be superior.
If you have an immune system or you want one, beta-1 3D glucan, that transfer point is very unique. It's going to get the results that you're looking for. I support it and I use it.
Better Way Health, I got to tell you, you can spend more time, you can spend more money, but you cannot give better service than you're going to get from those guys down there. They are truly 24 karat.
The brand you want to get is called Transfer Point Beta-1 3D Glucan, and you can get it from BetterWayHealth.com. Let's spread the message about beta-glucans. It's a powerful substance from nature that can help you.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.
I listen to get accurate, up-to-date information. I've learned so much from him. It is awesome. It's the best entertainment that I've found.
You rock the health world. Keep it up. I love you.
Now, the voice of health, freedom, and liberty, here's Robert Scott Bell.
It's time, my friends, to realize there's not a box that contain the Robert Scott Bell Show. That's why once a week we have to officially go outside outside the box. Why not? And Ty Bollinger will join us, not from the road, but from the studio office with Redneck Internet. So we'll have fun with Ty second hour of the show. And no, for those of you watching live on YouTube or later on Brighteon, no, I'm still not in shaving mode. My wife is, she's getting on me. She says, by tomorrow's show, you better be clean shaven. So we'll see who wins. Y'all out there voting or my wife? I think you know. I'm a smart guy. Who's going to win that one? Regardless, not a democracy here, not a democracy in America. For those of you who want democracy, go somewhere else where you can be eaten by the majority. Not here. This is where we protect individual liberty. 2 hours a day, 6 days a week on naturalnewsradio.com. Today, again, Ty Bollinger, Outside the Box. But before we get there, moms and dads out there, I know you're listening. Grandmas and grandpas out there, I know you're listening. And some of you teenagers, millennials, and post-millennials, you're welcome too. There's no ageism here. We love whatever age your body is or whatever age you feel. You're welcome on the Robert Scott Bell Show. In fact, we can help you to maybe feel a little bit younger, if not more frightened, hopefully not more frightened, but recognizing there are threats to your liberty, there are threats to your health, and they're mostly coming from people in government or people who have licenses from government who tell you they're only here to help you. Or, hey, I've been sanctioned to be the only conduit to your health. So you should be happy because the government says I'm the guy. No, the government says I'm not the guy, so you can be sure I'm probably the guy. Anyway, here we go. This is a serious issue. I know I'm trying to lighten it up to kind of, it's not a sucker punch scenario, but it's one of those things that as a parent, it does get you right in the gut when you hear a story like this. In the Bronx, are they going after the Orthodox Jews again? I don't know the religious beliefs of this mother who says her 11-year-old son was given an HPV vaccination at school without her consent. Here's the story out of News 12 in the Bronx. And guys and girls, I'm not a big fan of government indoctrination centers, a.k.a. public schools, but it's getting worse. It's not only that you have to unlearn them, the garbage that they're being fed, and I'm not just talking about dietitian-sanctioned food that is discounted or subsidized by taxpayers all across the United States. No, I'm talking about what they're feeding their brains. What are they feeding? And then not only that, but what they're injecting. And I mean, physically, I'm not talking figuratively injecting into your children, but literally, actually injecting into your children. Even though you say, not my child, you are putting them at risk by allowing them to go to a government indoctrination center. Part of me wants to say, what did you think was going to happen, Mom? And it's not. I'm not pleased by even having to kind of sort of bring that up. But what did you think could happen in a government indoctrination center? Roxanne Gautreaux, she was told over the phone by the nurse at this New York School for Leadership and Arts that her son had been accidentally injured and needed ice for his face. This should be your first warning, Mom and Dad. If your child is injured at school and gets sent to the school nurse, or do they call it an infirmary? What do they call it nowadays? I don't even know. But I remember, when your kid gets sick, they'll send you to usually a school nurse. And I remember back in my having a bellyache, going to the school nurse. Oh, I feel bad. They call Mom or Dad, and they usually come and get you, take you to a doctor, whatever happens. In this case, no, they just provided some ice. Just some ice. And you're thinking, okay, what's the big deal? When her son came home from school, she noticed he had a bright green Band-Aid on his arm. Not because his arm had gone gangrenous from the bump to his head, but because apparently the boy explained that the nurse gave him a shot. And you're 11-year-old. Think back if your kids are already past that age, or maybe they're not yet, or maybe they are 11. Think about your 11-year-old in the nurse's office, and suddenly the nurse is going to give him a shot or her a shot. Would your child at 11 be prepared to tell that nurse, no, my mom, my dad says no shots? I think in my kids, I would argue yes. They would say, not here. I'll call my mom right now. But at this point in time, you don't know at 11. That's a young age. 11, it's a vulnerable age. It's preteen. And authorities, doctors, nurses, school administrators, despite your best efforts, if you're sending them to public school, they could end up in the same scenario. The mom says, I never gave permission in that phone conversation. Vaccines were never even discussed. Along with the injection, the Bronx mom says her son was also handed a pamphlet on HPV. The human papillomavirus, the scams, the scums that are trying to frighten you into believing that HPV is the cause of cervical cancer. But this is an 11-year-old boy. What did they say to him? Did they actually bring up, hey, if this shot will prevent warts from growing on your tallywhacker? That's for my friends in England. Honestly, what do they say to an 11-year-old? I'm about to give you this shot. Is it for the bump on my head? Or did they say nothing? And just, here's a shot. Roll up your sleeve. We're going to give you. What happens in that scenario? Is that the least bit concerning to you, moms and dads out there, that this happened once, much less how many other times it has happened without parental permission? Oh, your kid's in school. That's all we need to know. You've given us permission, right? The assumption is there playing itself out. Now, there are actual proposals, I think even in New York, that would eliminate your ability to deny your child a vaccination. Yeah, no, that exists. We've talked about in New York, and I don't know if it's become official law. Superdon can review it and get back to me on this, but where they've actually lowered the age of what they call consent to, was it 15? Was it 14? Was it 13, 11, 10, 9? What is the age? What is the slippery slope I see descending to children in order to contravene their parents who don't know any better? Will that be the excuse? Will the school nurse say, well, your mom and dad are not medical professionals. I know better than them. And you just need to say, yes, give me the shot, and we're all in. Or in this case, the kid says, They just gave me a shot. 11-year-old. What if this child ended up in the hospital with an adverse event? It happens. And you're like, well, what the heck? I thought you said it was a mild bump that needed ice, and he's in the hospital. And then you find out, HPV shot. The question is, when this is done without consent, at least at this point, is there recourse? Because the vaccine industry and the pro-vaccine promoters and injectors, whether they be doctors or nurses, are technically protected under this blanket immunity where you can't sue them. But what about in this case, when they don't even ask for permission? The parents controlling their children until the age of majority? Oh, not in the Bronx. And besides the fact, and this is even weirder, but I want you to see this. I'll show you up if you're watching on YouTube right now or later on Brighteon. This mother said her son's school immunizations are up to date and there was no reason for her child to be even given a vaccine shot. For all you know, this kid already had the full round of the HPV. I don't know. It's not said in here, but the point is, where is the legitimacy of an allopathic medical professional, in this case a nurse, to know, hey, could there have been an adverse event? Is this kid in any way vulnerable due to allergies, autoimmune disease, any number of things? Did she run a complete medical history before giving this kid ice? Which I agree, you don't need a complete medical history to give a kid ice, but my gosh, step aside and go, we're about to give this kid a shot with aluminum that has resulted in death before, acknowledged in the vaccine adverse event reporting system. Guillain-Barré, we'll talk about that neurological issue a little later. And they're going to say an administrator from the medical center told her that they would review the protocol with the nurse. I'm like, isn't it a little bit late to review a protocol that clearly would be in violation of the Geneva Convention of informed consent? How does an 11-year-old even give informed consent? Folks, what would you do in this case? This is where I say, please be very cautious about where you send your kids to school and find out what that policy is. We've talked about those days they announced this week in school, flu shots for free, all kids. It's not enough to say, I wrote not for my child on the consent form. And they go, well, you signed the form. That means you consented. What? But did you read? No, it didn't matter. Your best bet is, at the very least, if you've got no other option that you know of, but you have to send your kid to government indoctrination centers, is to keep your kid at home for the entire week or day or however long they're saying it's vaccination time at school for free, because inadvertently, accidentally, they're going to find a way to inject your child, or maybe they'll just go beyond that and say, you know what, we don't need your consent. The legislature has seen fit now to allow young people below the age of majority and consent, below 18. How young? Let's find out. Because now the American Medical Association has chimed in, the AMA. The private trade group, which last time we checked, maybe less than 20% of all doctors, fewer than 20% of all medical doctors are members. I don't know if it's that low still. It hovered years ago. It was the majority of doctors, almost all of them. They were AMA members. Then I remember when it dropped below 50% many years ago. Now it's way below that. But their position, AMA, doctors, are you aware of this? Again, even if you're for vaccination, doctors, pay attention to this. If you are a member of the AMA, you've got to speak up, because the AMA says let minors meaning below the age of majority, below 18, they can't sign contracts, legally enter into a contract, they can't vote, they can't drink, all those things adults are allowed to do, right? Yet below the age of 18, AMA says, yep, they should be able to override the parents' perspectives and beliefs on this. Not making it up. This is coming out of MSN. This is a mainstream news report. I know most of it's fake news, but this is a very serious article. They voted to support state policies that would allow minors to override their parents' objections to vaccination. The AMA will actively now encourage state lawmakers to institute comprehensive vaccine and minor consent policies, according to this news release. And it came on their Monday meeting in Chicago, their annual meeting. And so this is their counteracting of moms and dads waking up. It's like, you know what we can do here? We don't even need to worry about moms and dads. All we need to do is encourage state legislators across this land to override what has been eons of reality. when we talk about parental authority over their children. And suddenly we are going to grant a minor something that could never be fathomable, conceivable, inconceivable, that they would allow an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 10, a 12, a 15. What age do you say? In everything else, it's 18. It is. You can't enter a contract. Your son, your daughter signs a contract. She's not liable at 17, much less 16, 15. You follow this? But, when it comes to vaccination, we are going to grant an exception. Ironically, an exemption. Yes, that's right. They're granting an exemption for your child to consent. Because they can't consent. Now here's a special exemption. You can now exempt from your parents' lack of consent. Really? Does anybody else find this bizarre? Now, there are other issues when we come to minors being free to make choices about their own life and health, etc. You can't find many examples, and if I haven't thought of any, or if Super Don, you come up with some, or if somebody out there watching or listening, let me know. Show me the examples of exceptions to the rule when it comes to consent issues for minors. What else can a minor consent to in violation of a parent's authority? In violation of parental authority, in contravention to parental authority. What else does the government say? Yep, minors have the freedom to reject whatever their parents say. Right? Mom and dad said you can't go out after 9 p.m. You're like picked up by the police. And hey, police officer, I can be out after 9 despite my parents' objections because, look, the state has now said I can get a vaccine without my parental consent. So why not let me stay? It's like, what's the level? Where's the line drawn here in the theoretical or actual slippery slope in terms of parental authority? If they've just said, it doesn't matter what the parents say about vaccines, we can give it to you anyway. Just convince the kid who doesn't know better at 11 years old, for instance, that he has to get a shot. Your parents don't know better. What's to stop the state from saying, you know what? You know those 35, 45, 50-year-old people that want to marry 15, 14, 13-year-olds? Oh, no, Robert, that's beyond the pale. They would never do that. There are examples. There are statements, whether they be in media, corporations, government agencies. In fact, I just read this out of England. There's an MP who says there's no evidence to support the claims that having sex with minors is going to impact them negatively, emotionally, or mentally. I am not making this up. I'm not saying that's what they're proposing in New York at this moment. That's not what I'm not saying that the AMA is even for that. So don't tell me that. But again, I think it's a valid question. If they can say minors now have the ability at the age of, you name it, below the age of majority on everything else, to make medical decisions that could possibly alter their lives, possibly kill them. Okay, vaccine injury deniers will say, Robert, you're exaggerating. Well, no, is it an exaggeration that there have been children and adults that have died post-vaccination? Unless you're a vaccine injury denialist, you know that that's a factual statement. Did I say everybody dies after vaccine? Well, eventually. But no. I mean, we're talking, you cannot tell me this is not a serious decision that parents need to be involved with. And what else then can they say? Well, we've set the precedent now in the AMA. Hey, those doctors, right? They say it's legitimate for minors to basically consent to a potentially death-inducing medical intervention known as vaccination. You know, once the kid's 18, and we talked about this, remember with the Lindenberger case, once he's 18, he went off. He's like, yeah, he can get a vaccine, even if his parents don't agree. He's 18, the age of majority. You can't stop him. Now, the parents could say, if you get that, we're kicking you out of the house. There are consequences to every action. But at 18, that is the accepted age, at least in this society, in the Western world, for the most part. So I'm just asking you to consider, where does it end if you allow this to go forward? If you allow regulators, authoritarians in government to even propose the thought, the idea, just even to utter it. And I'm glad they're talking about it. I want them exposed for the criminals that they are, to visit vaccine violence on children against the will of their parents. It doesn't stop there. We've already seen precedent set with children and oncology. Kids, you're still a kid, and your parents look and say, you know what? I've looked at the oncology options, chemo, radiation surgery, and even if I've availed myself of those things before for you, your child, and then you realize, my gosh, they're not getting better, they're getting worse, and then you make the decision, it's still not allowed. We talked about it yesterday with a mom on the lam with a child who actually got better using CBD and other holistic methods. What is your viewpoint on the role of government as it relates to the role of the family? Is there a situation like this, similar to this, exactly like? What situation would you say, yep, the government has to come in and force a medical intervention? It's a real question. It's not a hypothetical. To recognize the statements that the founding fathers of this country said, and I've said, and many people on this show have said, that the real danger to life, liberty, and property is not foreign terrorism. The real danger is your own government, violating the sovereignty, the sanctity, the special, even spiritual obligation, responsibility that parents have to their children. Is it an obvious case of abuse? Because that's what many of you would say. Well, the obvious cases of abuse is where, yes, the government has a role to protect the innocent and maybe take them and then fine. Okay. Did I deny that? No. And so when you say the things that I say, doesn't mean that, I want kids to be beaten to one shred of their life before the government intervenes. But how many times have we covered CPS stories where there is no abuse? It's an angry neighbor. It's a retaliatory issue where it isn't legitimate. And then it is also related to the issue of medical kidnap, where the parents say, nope, don't want any more of your chemo. We're going a different road. And then the hospital says, oh, no, we can't lose you. You're worth, what, $250,000 to us. We'll get CPS to do our dirty work. They'll take the child away, become wards of the state, put into foster care, and we'll take over that child's care. And guess what? The taxpayer is on the hook from that point forward. Yeah, it gets worse and worse and worse. Not only bad for the child and the family and what happens here. So am I proposing a solution? Well, yeah, limit the reach of government. A separation of medicine and state is the very least we could demand. I might argue a separation of education and state. But there are people in California and other states that believe you have a right to an education. No, apparently you have an obligation to indoctrination if public schools are all you got. If they outlaw private schools or outlaw homeschooling. The freedom to indoctrinate? No, it's a violent act visited on the mind of children to teach them how they teach them in America. And I've talked to Jonathan Emord about this on our Sacred Fire of Liberty programs. You teach them that America is a democracy. It's not. It's a lie. You teach them that collectivism is an ideal goal. Socialism is more fair than freedom. On and on and on. All the things you're going to have to unlearn or deprogram your children from because they're going to government indoctrination centers, public schools. They're not teaching real history. They're not teaching the form of government that we are supposed to have according to our founding documents. And that has led to a point where the vast majority, apparently, of Americans believe it's perfectly fine for the government to intervene, take your children away, to force them into the church of pharmaceutical mysticism, oncology division or denomination, or vaccinology denomination. You will have people arguing. Now, I think a lot of them are Russian bots. Oh, wait, did I say Russian bots? No, that's what they would call us. No, but they could be artificial creations of synthetic technology in that you've got one dunder-headed skepduck that has 100 identities. We've known that it exists, and they play roles out on social media, and they attack. But I don't believe really it's the majority. Even though the majority do believe in vaccinations, I do not believe the majority of Americans believe that it is appropriate and right to take children from their parents just because they disagree with vaccinations and forcefully vaccinate them, or say the age of consent can be lowered to 15, 14, 12, 11, 9, right, for HPV shots, because we know HPV. Don't get me started on what HPV is and what it isn't. They lied to us about that too. So this is one of those stories like you can't make this up. And now the AMA is going, yep, lower the age of consent. So do we have allies in modern medicine? Some, but they're often ostracized or Wakefielded. You know, they come out and speak out about the vaccine issue, and it's not according to the dogma of the church. We got to throw them under the vaccine bus. How many doctors out there, like this nurse, would violate informed consent? Apparently, when they feel there is no, and rightfully so, apparently, they feel there is no consequence to their action. And as I wrap up this opening monologue here, I want you to remember psychological experiments have been conducted that when humans are convinced there is no consequence for their actions, they're willing to visit great evils on innocent people, including innocent children. I don't have to say anything more than that, except that if you do not work to repeal laws that have eliminated total liability, not only from the vaccine manufacturers to the injury due to their products, but anybody who administers those vaccines, the doctors and the nurses, or the Walmart clerks, if they stop, because they'll go there, if you can eliminate their shield of artificial immunity, you can stop this problem today. Yeah, think about it. Doc, sign this document. If I agree to have you vaccinate my child, you will assume all liability should there be an injury or death to my child. There is not one doctor that would sign that because they know, whether they pretend that they don't, they know on a deep level the danger, potential danger, or actual danger they're visiting upon each child or adult that receives the vaccination. $4 billion plus paid out through the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. Not enough for you? Okay. Give them that document. First, stop sending them to government indoctrination centers, and at least part of the danger will be reduced, if not eliminated. I'm not saying it's all gone. There are always going to be ways that people are trying to take your children from you for illicit purposes. In this case, for medical experimentation. How long before if it can be worse? Which it can be worse, of course. Folks, appreciate y'all being here. I'm going to take a quick break. And remember the hydrogen water we have, molecular hydrogen? You can get it from synergyscience.com. You can go to robertswater.com. Just mention the Robert Scott Bell Show when you go there. You'll get special discounts because you're a part of this message of health, freedom, and healing liberty. I appreciate y'all so much for being here. Be right back.
Have you ever watched a movie with superheroes and villains? If so, you already understand the science of drinking hydrogen-enriched water and how to unlock true health. Allow me to explain. In our bodies, we have a natural struggle between superheroes and villains, with molecular hydrogen being the superhero and oxidative stress the villain. So how does knowing that give you the tools to unlock true health? Your body is naturally designed to fight oxidative stress through specific bacteria in the gut that creates hydrogen on their own. Pretty awesome, right? So why does this matter? Well, in most people, the hydrogen-creating bacteria is gone, and cancer and disease soon follow. So the real question is, why aren't we trying to fix this every day? Well, the answer is simple. It's hard. Even the most healthy of individuals who biohack take months or years to achieve this balance. But how do we get there without taking months or even years? After years of study and development, we discovered and designed the perfect technology that made it all possible. We call this technology Echo H2 Water. Within minutes of drinking hydrogen-rich water from our Echo Hydrogen water machines, you are back in control, balanced, and feeling amazingly hydrated and healthy. Having your own Echo Hydrogen water machine is kinda like having your own team of superheroes on call, always available to fight the villains in your body. Pretty cool, right? But don't just take our word for it. Get your Echo H2 water machine today and quickly bring your body into balance with hydrogen. Have you ever watched a
All right, back at it on the Robert Scott Bell Show. Thanks for bearing with us on that break. We have a lot more to do. And Super Don, I understand there's some social media response that might be relevant to a very serious opening to the show today regarding parental authority, consent, medical, threats to the family, threats to the sovereignty and sanctity of the family and the child, the ability to consent at younger and younger ages. Again, where I went, probably not comfortable for y'all to consider, but it's happening, and there are those that are proposing it in other areas of life. So I'm not holding back on it. I need to let y'all know.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big deal, and I think predictably a lot of people are upset by the notion here. Because listen, being a parent, you just kind of assume that you have rights and responsibilities and things as being the parent, that when those things get questioned, it's almost like a slap in the face.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases. And we have some folks just, and if you guys don't already know this, we live tweet and live Facebook during the show. So as we're covering these stories, we're posting these links. So you can follow along, whether you go to the show notes at robertscottbell.com, or if you're plugged in on Facebook or Twitter, you can kind of follow along and see what's going on. But yeah, we've gotten some response here. And this is actually a really interesting point that Camp DL makes on this AMA, the American Medical Association, wanting to let minors override parents' vaccination refusal. Camp DL says, yeah, well, until those children want to say no, that is. And that's a good point, because it's like the AMA is going to say, listen, we need to empower these children to, make these choices. And, if their parents are refusing to get them vaccinated. But what about children that would be refusing parents that are saying they do want them to get vaccinated? Would those children be respected in that case?
Yeah, no.
Probably not. Probably not.
No.
And the other thought that I had, now it's been a few years since I had kids in school.
Mm-hmm. Well, I thought you were going to say it's been a few years since you had a thought. And I thought, no, that's not right.
Yeah, no, not today. But anyway, when I had kids in school, I can remember those kids, they couldn't go on a field trip to the museum without a permission slip.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't take part in after-school clubs without a permission slip. They couldn't participate in sports without a permission slip. So why is it that they need permission to take a bag lunch to go look at the dinosaur bones at the museum? But there's no permission slip required to get a vaccination,
a medical procedure
from a school nurse.
Yeah.
That something's off right there.
It doesn't require any histrionics, screaming, yelling. Even though it deserves it, but it's so absurd that this is even a consideration, to your point as well. And even today, if your kid's going on a field trip, you can bet they're getting parental permission slips. Why is it with the vaccines they're arguing that, no, parents, you don't need to be involved in this decision?
Well, and look, what's the reason why they require the permission slip?
Liability.
We don't want to take your child off of school grounds in the event that something
happened
to them. Then we would be liable. We would get in trouble because we did it without your permission. But we're going to give your kid a vaccine. Now, what happens if that vaccine causes an adverse reaction? Who's now liable?
No liability. That's why I wrapped up that entire monologue today on the issue of liability, because I said, you can go in and shoot these people, and I'm not advocating that, even though they're shooting you and your children with these syringes. It's a different kind of shot, I know, but that's after the fact. How do you stop them from doing it? Well, unless you're a deranged lunatic sociopath on major medication from your pharmaceutical doctor, particularly your psychiatrist, like SSRIs, psychotropics. Those are the people that, have lost sight of the value of life, and they go suicidal and homicidal. Outside of that, most people would never think to violate the rights of the parent. Criminals, okay, but, the criminally deranged and insane, induced by drugs, by medicine, by AMA members. And so if you have a human being that recognizes, should they give this shot and something goes wrong and they're going to be held personally liable or accountable, they might lose their house, lose their car, lose their job, lose their freedom. Yeah, it's going to impact their behavior. What do you think, right? And this is what I said. If you are convinced that no matter what you do, there is no consequence to your action. I mean, you have to be at saint level. We're talking Jesus walking the earth for most people to not do horrible things. Oh, I can get away with this? Yeah? Ooh, okay. Right? This is human nature. Again, I'm not accusing anybody, but I'm just recognizing the experiments have been done, and without fail, we're seeing, like this nurse in the Bronx, there's no consequence to her action. What's going to happen to her? It'd be interesting if something did, based on the fact that I don't think an 11-year-old can give consent, but by and large, if there's even a slap on the wrist, there might be a memo. Hey, in future, don't do this. But what about the violation of this child in contravention of the parent's authority? All right, I'll leave it at that because I could do a whole 24 hours on this subject. If you have more comments or questions, go to robertscottbell.com, type them in, submit them. Sign up for email alerts too, because Super Don's going to be sending out an email blast this week that's going to tell you how to enter to win one of these. Our friends from Plus CBD Oil, CV Sciences, Cafe Mocha flavor, yum, yum, yum. I know, Super Don, you and I both like the mint too, but Cafe Mocha is kind of special, right? Start the day with a little Cafe Mocha.
The mint is something else. Be prepared. If you like peppermint.
It's lovely. I like peppermint.
Man. Yeah.
We're growing it. We got spearmint growing too. Anyway. All right, let's go to the next story here, and you will check it out at robertscottbell.com. It's linked up, and it'll take you to this Medical Express article. Mouse study finds BPA exposure has transgendered effects. Wait, did I say that?
Transgendered?
Yeah. Well, maybe that too. Transgenerational effects on gene linked to autism. Right? The first article here, or first paragraph, if not paragraph, just a sentence, it says it. Transgenerational. It might as well be transgendered. Do you know that BPA is a xenoestrogen and impacts hormone or endocrine function and balance? Could that be impacting the confusion, the gender identity issues, cross generations? I mean, if it is argued in this scientific paper that there is transgenerational impact of BPA exposure on a gene that they say is linked to autism, why is it not reasonable also to say, hey, I wonder if these xenoestrogenic impacts that we already know within one generation are impacting transgenerationally? That's not in the article, but I'm asking the question because a lot of the gender confusion, I have argued, I've posited that it's due to the xenoestrogens, the impacts on our health even before we have children and the offspring, right? They're arguing that it's impacting the gene expression. So in reality, even though they're also saying in this article or trying to intimate that genes are the cause of autism, they've inadvertently exposed you to epigenetics. Exposure of mouse fetuses to BPA disrupts formation of nerve cell connections in the brain. And this is a transgenerational effect, said the study's senior author, Emily F. Rissman, PhD, of the University of Virginia School of Medicine in Charlottesville and North Carolina State University in Raleigh, NC. To put this in human terms, if your great-grandmother was exposed to BPA during her pregnancy and none of your other relatives ever came into contact with BPA, your brain would still somehow show these effects. Cross or transgenerational impact of BPA exposure. Now, some of you will say, well, see, that proves autism is genetic. No, it doesn't. It proves that the environment impacts gene expression across generations, but without that environmental trigger of BPA causing aberrant gene expression, there would not be that lineage at all. So even when they claim autism is genetic, it's environmental. Why do genes or how do genes express differently? Due to exposures or changes in the environment that cause you to have to conform or adapt to that changing environment. And yes, genetic shifts can occur cross-generational, transgenerational. People into epigenetics don't deny that. But to then claim, because this article has proven it, we see transgenerational effects, it's genetic. No, what triggered that alternate gene expression? What triggered it? This is fantastic news. But think about how this would be impacted if Andrew Wakefield wrote this. Remember when Wakefield wrote the paper? He wasn't even the senior lead researcher on it, but they picked Wakefield as the target. You know, as a pediatric gastroenterologist, he looked at these children and saw that there was a novel new form of what he called iatrogenic inflammation or enterocolitis, inflammation of the gut. And within those children, he also found evidence of the unique strain of measles virus that was not wild type, but that was connected to the actual MMR vaccine. Now, these children also were on the autism spectrum. He never once said that the vaccine MMR caused autism. It was merely a recognition of inflammation, a novel new form of inflammation identified post-MMR. We should look into this more. But the fact that these children also were autistic or had the autism label was enough that we had to cut him off at the knees and tell other researchers and doctors they should never, ever, even remotely link vaccines to anything but manna from heaven, basically. And so if this article, Super Don, had manifested differently, how would you say this article could be written in a way that they'd be Wakefielding these authors, differently than this outcome?
I mean, look, it's BPA. Here's the thing about BPA. BPA has already, I think, been identified as something that's bad or negative. So nobody's going to care. You could link BPA to autism. They're not going to care. You could link,
What if the
Russians to autism, right? Yeah, Russians cause autism.
Right, that's okay.
Trump causes autism. Half of the United States would say, "Yep, that makes sense."
We knew it. Yeah.
Right.
So how would they have to alter this to catch hell? Right, like Wakefield did.
Well, it have to be vaccines.
Well, they would have to say BPA in vaccines. Even that. Right?
No, I see what you're saying there.
Right? If vaccines were
in vaccines,
well, there could be. How much plastic is involved in production?
All right, I'm following you now. So let's say that there's, like aluminum and formaldehyde and, that's in vaccines. On its own, those things, if you looked at that and you said, is that good for you or bad for you? People would go, oh my God, no, that's bad for you, right? But if they put BPA in vaccines and they said, listen, there is BPA in some vaccines, but it's a very minute amount that does not cause harm, and there's a purpose for it being in the vaccine.
Yeah.
Then yes. Then if you then had this study and said, look, BPA causes autism, then the lead author, let's see, who's the lead author here? This would be Emily Rissman.
Yeah.
Would be the new Andrew Wakefield.
Correct. See? You see how you modified that slightly. And just like glyphosate found in vaccines, they don't want to acknowledge that, but anything that's linked to vaccines is enough to go, whoa, cut it off at the pass, because they're going to start recognizing other things in there. Folks, this is why you need to watch or listen constantly to the Robert Scott Bell Show. You should be nothing else in the world except listen to this 24. No, obviously not. But where else are you going to get this kind of information and insight?
You can listen to it 24/7 if you want to.
How would they do that, Super Don?
Well, if you go to naturalnewsradio.com, you can listen to literally 24 hours of Robert Scott Bell if you just, and believe it or not, some people do. I mean, I don't want your head to get too big there in the studio. You're going to knock over the monitor, but there are some times, because I'll go in and I'll check and see, who's listening to the stream and stuff like that. And there are people literally plugged into the listening to the stream for 8-10 hours at a time.
Yeah, just if you're one of those people, Super Don does not know your name, so don't worry.
No.
Nobody's being doxxed for being a super fan.
It's just a number is all it is.
Because it's nerve-wracking. It's like maybe the NSA or CIA know, but they know everything, right? They're almost omniscient demigods. Inappropriate, of course. So let's move on here to one of these QOTDs.
Excuse me. I'd like to ask you a few questions.
All right, question of the day is coming up now. Who's it coming from? Mohammed. Mohammed has a question. Says, hello, Dr. Rob. I have a few questions. My mother has a small cell lung cancer and extended level cisplatin plus etoposide and Cavi protocols, received chemotherapy in total of 12 cycles. At the same time, between two different chemotherapies, received also radiotherapy, which we call radiation therapy. I think in England and other places, they do say radiotherapy, for 10 days. Although cancer is stable in the organs such as the lungs and the liver, an increase is observed in the brain. How can you give us a suggestion? Well, you've asked. I'm not going to be prescribing anything for your mother, but I'm going to share information with you, perspectives that you won't hear anywhere else, and we'll see where we go. How should we use colloidal silver water? And what should be the ppm value? Please tell me alternative treatment options. I wish healthy days, Mohammed. Well, Mohammed, thank you for writing in on behalf of your mother. Again, I'm not treating her for cancer. This is not what I do here, but perspective is in order. Interesting that you mentioned cisplatin, because I brought this up over the years. There have been medical science experiments, investigations, ending up in the peer-reviewed medical literature about the platinum-based chemotherapy drug known as cisplatin. It's platinum-based, a metal called platinum, right? Precious metal. And you brought up silver. That's an interesting thing here. Silver's not as quote-unquote valuable because it's not as rare as platinum. But platinum is very toxic in the dosages that they make it for cancer therapy. But unfortunately, just like all chemo, it's very toxic to your healthy mammalian tissue as well, your healthy cells. So in the analysis, and I don't have it linked up in the show notes today, I wasn't prepared to bring that out, but I've covered it over the years. In fact, I talked with Dr. Nicholas Gonzalez back in the day about these interesting things, because we would talk about the therapeutic value of silver in its bioactive form, which is the ion. And they did a comparison of nanoparticles of silver and against the nanoparticles of cisplatin, platinum-based chemo. And they had an equal efficacy in terms of killing or stopping cancer cell replication, reproduction. Right? No apoptosis. Cancer cells don't die, but they reproduce. They keep going, and spreading. So the cisplatin, the toxic chemo, platinum-based, colloidal silver equivalent, but silver nanoparticles, the ions, and they tested them side by side. The cisplatin killed cancer. The silver, equally effective at destroying cancer cells. What was the main difference in this study, boys and girls? What was the main difference? If they had similar efficacy in terms of stopping cancer, what was the difference? The cisplatin was indiscriminate in destroying all healthy tissue surrounding the cancer cells. That means your healthy mammalian tissue that is not cancerous is going to be destroyed. If not outright destroyed, massive inflammation, injury, damage to those cells. The silver, zero damage to surrounding healthy tissue, mammalian cells. Is that interesting to anybody? What's another study that I refer to often in my lectures when I talk about gastrointestinal health? It relates to damage to epithelial cells of the gastrointestinal tract. As I'm arguing that there are protocols to use bioactive silver hydrosol with aloe to help heal tissue, accelerate tissue regrowth, regeneration, because the ions do that interacting with cells. That's why in modern medicine they use a silver-based drug, Silvadene, to put on third-degree burns that there is no tissue left because it regenerates, accelerates regeneration of tissue, and that's fractionally active compared to the bioactive form I like. What am I bringing up about GI? Well, one of the studies said, and it resulted in a USA Today newspaper article, colloidal silver or silver nanoparticles damage the cells of the gastrointestinal tract, the epithelial lining, damages it. Kills those cells. You're like, oh, good Lord, what have I been doing? What have I done? Right? I thought I was helping people. And USA Today says I'm harming them. And it turns out when you go to the original research article, not the article from USA Today, but the article that was based on the scientific research, you go into that article and you go, oh, that's interesting. They forgot to mention that the epithelial cells of the gastrointestinal tract that were being destroyed by the silver nanoparticles happen to be epithelial cancer cells. Who wants to argue that that was an oops by USA Today? The headline reading, appropriately, if they were accurate to the article, looks like silver nanoparticles destroy esophageal cancer, gastrointestinal cancer, colorectal cancer cells. I'm not selling any product. I'm talking about the scientific literature. You got a problem, take it up with the scientists and doctors that have discovered this. Unlocked their potential. But yet, how many oncologists know this? And if they do, how many of them are promoting the use of silver instead of platinum-based chemo? Now, Muhammad says that his mother's lungs have cleared up. We've talked about nebulizing silver, but it's now in the brain. Obviously, that's very difficult to get there unless you go intra-arterial, and not many people know how to do that. It's funny, X-ray technicians, nuclear medicine specialists can do intra-arterial injections of, what do they call those agents? God, I'm losing my mind here, Super Don. Those agents, contrasting agents. I got it. Contrast agents. They can go intra-arterially because they want it to go into the brain, so when they scan it, they can see what's going on. In an ideal world, they could utilize safe form of silver that way, and it would be delivered right to the brain. But that's a very invasive procedure. Not many doctors do that. I'm just throwing it out there for your consideration. But barring that, I think of Chris Barr, funny enough, and I think of Notadoc and the talk that we've had over the years about the role of selenium, the number one mineral that is lacking in any and all cancer patients. Selenium, the most protective trace element that is not being given in the appropriate form nor in the appropriate amounts because they're freaking out about the amounts that are appropriate. They're too high. They're too dangerous. The selenium is toxic. Well, you're taking the wrong form. Synthetic isolates, not as food provides. And so we do the innate response form of selenium here. It is 100% whole food, and you can get it through Jonathan at choosetobehealthy.com. What would I be doing? I'm not telling you what to do or your mom what to do. I would be on 1,000, 1,200 micrograms a day. I would. That's just what I would do in those situations. Chromium, of course, the same thing. 100% whole food, 100 micrograms 4 times a day. Why? Because it is the critical way that you can reduce the ability for cancer cells to grab those sugars that are a necessary part of cellular functioning in most cases. I'm not saying that you can eat a refined carb diet with cancer, not saying it's good anytime, but the idea here is recognizing the role of chromium in utilizing sugars appropriately and safely for your healthy cells. And then to prevent metastasis and promote healthy neurological integrity, function leading from the form, restoring form, silica. Alta Health Products Silica, 100% whole food, 3 tablets 4 times a day. And that is the Silica Challenge. That is the rapid rebuild of the silicon stores to protect integrity of neural tissue, all connective tissue, and reduce the likelihood and the ease with which the cancer has thus far spread or metastasized, perhaps due to the chemotherapy and radiation that we know both of those actually can result in more proliferation of cancer by robbing you of the very minerals that you need, your cells need to protect against such oxidative damage, stress, toxicity. Super Don, have I said too much? Is Muhammad like running? Too much, Robert. Asked a simple question. No, you didn't. It was a complex question.
No, that was a complex question. You gave a complex
answer. Right. Do we have time for a comment of the day?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, let's do it.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, I tell you what.
Hey, here's an idea.
Hey, listen up, everybody. Excuse me.
I got something to say.
All right, we do have a comment of the day coming from Anonymous. Anonymous. Is that a Greek name, Anonymous? Anyway.
No, it's anonymous, and it's not the hacker group either.
Okay, comment of the day. I wanted to pass along this Kratom tidbit. Today at a multi-agency meeting I attend monthly, we had an FDA agent show up who had never come before. This is a closed meeting by invitation only, and nothing discussed during this meeting is for public consumption. That actually makes it sound like something high level, which it's not. LOL. Anyway, the agent talked about the FDA's priorities, and I am here to say they are chomping at the bit for Kratom to get listed by the federal government. And they are going to investigate anyone who is remotely associated with it. I did speak up to defend Kratom, but it fell on deaf ears. This is anonymous. Didn't want to reveal who he or she is, and that's fine. I'm not surprised by this. I don't think, Super Don, you're surprised by this. Their priorities are all messed up. I mean, Kratom is really killing no one in reality. All of those stretches and reaches that they got going. Kratom is an opioid. It's it's like heroin. Nobody, even on high doses of Kratom, stops breathing. And it is helping, as we've talked to people, and I know people who have been heroin addicted, alcohol addicted. It is also, like CBD in some ways, helping people off of these addictive substances, Super Don. But it's not a drug.
That's just anecdotal.
It's not a pharmaceutical drug, Super D.
That's just anecdotal evidence.
So they got to stop it at all costs.
They got to stop it. No, you're right. And the thing is even the deaths and the injuries that the CDC puts out there, the FDA, where they're trying to blame Kratom, some of them are so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Where there's no way that you can really tie one to the other. And they say that it is similar to the way that opiates work.
Mm-hmm.
And so because they have just utterly failed in a huge way to try and combat the opioid epidemic.
Yeah.
They want to have something, right? They want to have
We
something. They can say,
stopped
"Look, we're
Kratom."
doing something. Look at us, success. We care. You know, when in
Folks
reality,
don't let
all
them
they're
do
doing
it.
is hurting people by going after it.
There's similar slippery slopes. If you give up on Kratom, you know, we just gained cannabis access for the most part. You're going to say, oh, we'll throw Kratom under the bus now. No. You've got to stand on principle. They don't have the authority to ban a plant that God created, and especially one that is truly not doing harm. Yes, anything could be abused, but if you deny access to this plant for those who need it, suffering and pain, even my teenage son, oh my gosh, they're going to come and get me. Well, now he's the age of majority. He's 19, but he had a dental extraction last year, and we used CBD and Kratom. He never resorted to one painkiller after the extraction. Not one. Whoa, we can't have that. That's one less customer for us at Big Pharma. He's not buying those drugs. He's not getting that prescription. That's right. That is my birthright, my son's birthright, not have to choose. These pain-killing drugs that are killing many of our friends and family members who were responsibly prescribed these drugs. We have an article next hour that we're going to talk with Ty Bollinger about the danger of the opioids and how, in fact, you thought Purdue Pharma was bad. Wait till you hear about the potential that J&J has done even worse. Not surprising. And if you're a little bit nervous and scared about all of this, then maybe it's time to grab your teddy bear. Yep, that's right. Here it is. 1/3 of adults apparently still sleep with their comfort object from childhood, according to a new survey. Oh, wow. I can't get a good night's sleep unless I'm hugging my teddy bear. I don't know what this says.
No idea. That's a lot of people.
1/3 of adults? Really?
They still snuggle. 34% of adults still snuggle with a stuffed animal, a blanket, or other anxiety-reducing item of sentimental value. I think it's kind of cute, but at the same time, I'm kind of surprised. I had no idea that was the case.
Are we worried?
Do you have a teddy bear?
I do not. I have my wife. She's way better.
Who knew? Yeah, right. If you have a spouse, you don't need a teddy bear. But yeah, and then in the survey, 41% of respondents said they can't fall asleep on time without turning to some sort of ritual before bed. I don't know about you. I guess I have a ritual. I kind of do the same.
I hope you floss and brush your teeth.
Take the dogs out, set the coffee maker, go to the bathroom, go to bed. But some of the rituals that people have before they are able to go to bed would be checking to make sure the doors are locked. Guilty. Listening to music, nah, not so much. Watching a specific TV show or movie, maybe. I guess depending on the day.
Yeah.
Playing around on their phone, a lot of people probably do that. Reading a book, taking a bath, eating a snack, taking vitamins or supplements.
That's me. Hey, that's me. You know what? I'm going to take my magnesium, my 100% whole food magnesium dose before bed.
Gotcha.
So I'm in there. But is that the same as a teddy bear? I think these rituals are not all teddy bear. And okay, if you got a teddy bear, I'm not judging. You got your baby blanket, I'm not judging. But it shows what a snowflake species we've become.
Well, maybe. Whatever. People can do whatever they want to do. But listen, one last point on this survey.
Sure.
Tell me what you think about this.
What?
For 26% of participants, they rely on an unconventional method to tire themselves out. Now get this. Such as thinking about alligators. What?
So much for counting sheep. The alligators ate them. That's funny.
Maybe running from alligators
right?
would tire you out. Thinking about alligators?
Right. That's
putting
something
their legs
else,
on the wall or rocking themselves to sleep. I don't understand the alligator part.
You know, and one of the rituals that they didn't put in there is turning off the router at night, which, by the way, that would help those people to go to sleep. Or if they had the key home technology, the Synergy technology, that would be allowing, because, again, I sleep like a baby with that, even if the router's on, which is a discovery I made inadvertently. So there are a lot of things that we need to consider to have a good night's sleep. And if it takes your teddy bear, look, I'm making a little fun, just a little, but I remember my baby blanket. Super Don doesn't remember his. Apparently, he was denied a baby blanket. His mom and dad were so mean to him. You were abused. No baby blanket for Super Don. Little baby Super Don.
I don't remember what I had for dinner yesterday, let alone my
baby
blanket.
And my mom likes to tell the story of how our Siamese cats, when I was in New York When I was a little baby, they stole my pacifier and I would cry. Darn cats. Why do I even like cats today? If they stole my pacifier as a baby, wouldn't that be a traumatic unconscious fear? No. Didn't work that way for me. All right, folks, we're going to take a break. We should be going outside the box with Ty Bollinger momentarily. The power to heal is yours.
The Robert Scott Bell Show. The Robert Scott Bell Show.
Here at Plus CBD Oil, we believe it is essential to make different products for different lifestyles. That's why we've created 3 different formulas to fit your personal wellness regimen. We start with our raw formula. This formula is a full-spectrum, whole plant CO2 extract from agricultural hemp. The most prominent compound in our raw formula is CBDA, a naturally occurring cannabinoid produced in hemp. CBDA is CBD in its acid form with its own unique properties. For example, it does not cross the blood-brain barrier, meaning it exerts most of its benefits in the body, making it a true hemp superfood. The next step is our total plant complex, where our raw formula undergoes a gentle heating process that converts CBDA into activated CBD. Now that CBD has been activated, it has the ability to affect all organ systems. Aside from CBD, our total plant complex is rich in many other phytocannabinoids and phytonutrients, such as fatty acids, terpenes, plant sterols, chlorophyll, and naturally occurring vitamin E. We then distill our total plant complex in a chemical-free process to make our signature gold formula. This removes the plant material while concentrating the other phytonutrients, making it the most potent, fastest-acting, and effective formula we offer. If you're looking for high-intensity support or just want more CBD, our gold formula products may be right for you. Because everyone utilizes phytocannabinoids differently, each experience will be personal and unique. Empower yourself and see which color, red, green, or gold, works best for you. Learn more about what our 3 different formulas can do for you at pluscbdoil.com.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.
I listen to get accurate, up-to-date information. I've learned so much from him. It is awesome. It's the best entertainment that I've found.
You rock the health world. Keep it up. I love you.
Now, the voice of health, freedom, and liberty, here's Robert Scott Bell.
All right, y'all ready? Hour 2 of the Robert Scott Bell Show kicking into gear right now, just awaiting our humble but lovable TMB, Ty Bollinger, to join us on the air. I've got my cup of tea, thanks to my teddy bear. My wife. I got my tea. It's a yerba mate and a dandelion, then thrown with a little organic peppermint on top of that. Let me take a drink. That's very refreshing. And we've got a whole hour of broadcast healing left to go. Maybe some extra innings today. We'll see. Those of you watching on YouTube, welcome. NaturalNewsRadio.com, our home and broadcast radio throughout the week, but also a sixth day of the week, which is technically the first day of the week, our Sunday broadcast through GCN. But you can catch it later at iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud, UK Health Radio, World Broadcasting Network, and where else? Stitcher, did I even mention that? I don't even know all the places that play the show, Super Don. We're all over the map, all over the world.
We're everywhere, man. Yeah, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes.
Incredible how many places we are.
Says he's trying to connect, but he can't.
He can't. Why not? Does he have the right browser? I don't see him anywhere.
What do you mean you can't connect?
Yeah, ask him what browser. You know what? Remember his redneck internet? This is what I was worried about. It's like he's so much better when he's in his car at a baseball field or at a parking lot. And then we got the underground bunker that is his office, and the internet barely works there. It's still too funny to assess or address. So he's trying, he says. I believe him, but Yoda says do or do not.
Waiting to join, it says.
It says, all right, that means I got to disconnect you, and I'll be right back.
All right. Stand by.
We're doing a little bit inside baseball here. Watch what happens when I do this and do that. Let's see. Nope. Cancel that. Let me see. Revert to reconnect. Here we go. I see TMB. All right, Super D. If you can talk to the folks while I get TMB plotted into all of our shots, I would be eternally grateful. Oop, hold on, Super D. Hold on. I've got her. Super. All right, hold on, Super Don. He can't hear me, and y'all can't hear me. All right, one moment. I'm going to reconnect once again. And stand by, Super D. I don't know if you can hear me now, but yeah, you were not coming out over the airwaves. That's why I had to do that. Let's see. Now you are, so go ahead. Carry on.
The game of dodgeball. Now, I don't know about you, but I played dodgeball when I was in school.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, I think, our age especially, played dodgeball. But apparently, dodgeball has been determined to be oppressive and dehumanizing.
Oh, really? That oppressive and dehumanizing. Are they?
How do you feel about that?
I survived dodgeball. And I got hit by.
Yeah, see, I can't hear Robert.
Oh, you can't hear me now. All right, so
I'm going to drop and reconnect as soon as you've got Ty.
Okay, let's see if I can get him on here. Networking.
Well, I don't even know. I don't even know what to even think here. This is a get off my lawn moment here when dodgeball is oppressive and dehumanizing.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, Ty Bollinger, can you hear me? No. No,
can you hear me, Don?
I can hear Super Don. I can hear Ty Bollinger.
Okay.
And they can't hear me.
Ty Bollinger. I'm going to drop and reconnect. Hold on.
Okay. Y'all, this is why we test connect early in the day.
We can't hear you through Rendezvous, Robert, is what's going on here.
Right, and I don't hey, listen, folks,
who's on first? What's on second?
This is live, and they can't hear me, and trying to troubleshoot how to work our way around this. We're going to go to a quick break here and see if we can figure this thing out and be back with more powerful healing. After, let's see, what am I going to give for you here? How about a little bit of our buddy Dr. Frank King?
Hi, I'm Dr. Frank King, and I want to share with you about the many benefits of homeopathy. For over 200 years, homeopathy has been used by physicians and veterinarians to treat hundreds of conditions worldwide. Homeopathy is supported by hundreds of scientific studies, texts, materia medicas, repertories for both people and pets. Homeopathy has passed the most valuable test of all, and that is the test of time. The majority of drugs today are being pulled from the marketplace due to the discovery of the dangerous side effects where the risks outweigh the benefits. Today, homeopathic remedies are standing strong as the safe, natural medicines for both people and pets, with no side effects, no known negative drug interactions, no risks of overdose, no addictions, no contraindications, and no problems. That's why I created Dr. King's Natural Medicine as your logical first choice.
You can't protect your kids from everything. That includes germs, like a virus or a bacteria.
No. Don't touch.
Hi, Mrs. Jones. Can Tommy come out to play?
No.
No matter how hard you try, you just can't be there every minute of the day.
Look what I found.
Where did you get that?
I found it in the street.
There's a better way. Help your child build a strong immune system with Beta Kids. No, it's not a vitamin. Vitamins build strong bones and tissues, but do little for the immune system. One delicious Beta Kids gummy daily wakes up the immune system, alerting your child's defenses to perform more, better, and faster. Studies have shown kids who take Beta Kids miss fewer school days due to illness. Beta Kids is made with beta-glucan, an all-natural ingredient. It's safe, healthy, and proven. You can't protect your kids from everything, but you can help them protect themselves with Beta Kids.
You know, he's really kind of,
Disgusting.
yeah.
Good thing we give him Beta Kids.
All right, we're back live on the Robert Scott Bell Show, Outside the Box Wednesday with, let's see, TMB. Does he hear me? Oh, he looks so good and tan. Dude, I need to get outside more just to keep up with you.
I put the good-looking tan filter on, man. I don't look this way, believe me.
Yeah, but I like the gray kind of goatee thing because you look at me, I'm scruffy as can be, and now at least you're here to be in alignment with me, even though my wife says I have to shave by tomorrow.
That's funny. The gray goatee makes me look tanner because anything in comparison to a dull gray looks better.
That's true. It could be a special effect that I'm seeing here, and you're not really tan. You're pale as a ghost, but I don't think so. You're getting out.
I have been out. I have been out in the sun quite a bit lately, so
yeah.
maybe a little bit tan, and it lingers for a while. We went on vacation a few weeks ago to Florida. I was out every day, and so for a while I'll have decent complexion, then I'll go back to my pasty white.
Well, it's interesting. Yesterday on the show, we covered a story about pediatricians are now going to have to recommend sun exposure for children with no sunscreen because apparently it results in fewer incidences of gastrointestinal inflammation.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. You covered that yesterday?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, what are they going to do without slathering cancer-causing sunscreens on these children? Right? So more of the science supports what you and I have been saying and reporting on The Truth About Cancer for years, that the sun does not cause cancer, it prevents it.
Yeah. But, at the same time, when we were down in Florida, though, you don't want to be out for 6 hours in the Tampa sun without some sort of protection. We had I think it was the Dr. McCullough brand of sunscreen. So that you can use if you're going to be out all day. And I tell you, the most uncomfortable places to burn are the top of your feet and the back of your legs because your calves get just charred if you're out. And the tops of your feet, if you're out on the beach, you don't think about that. Mm-hmm. But man, is it uncomfortable to get lobster red on the top of your feet and then have to put on shoes later.
Yeah.
Pretty painful. So, definitely if you're out for prolonged periods of time, you want to definitely use some sort of a non-toxic sunscreen because I personally can't stay out for 4 or 5 hours without getting charred.
No, in SPF shirts, they have light shirts that are not too hot that'll prevent that, and that's a non-chemical way option as well. So there are ways to address that. And in fact, speaking of the feet thing, you can't put on. I at one point years ago, I don't know, that's a long time ago, I found these flip-flops that were just the base, and your foot stuck to them. Believe it or not. It's one of those weird things. I don't know if it was a 3M product, but when you took it off and you could wash it with soap and water, and if there was dirt on it, because it's sticky, it would clean off, and then you could stick your foot right back on it and had no things between your toes. So that would be the option if you ever get sunburn on the top of your feet again.
Interesting. Yeah. Very cool, man.
So let's hit the first subject. It's something we actually had Rick Jaffe on the show a few days ago, I believe, or last week, about Dr. Ken Stoller fighting back against the vaccine Gestapo's assault on a doctor's freedom to write an exemption in California.
Yeah, and we published an article on the Truth About Cancer maybe last week, or middle of last week, about this very topic. And it's sad when the doctors are now being hit with being part of this conspiracy to be vaccine hesitant. Vaccine hesitancy is the new buzzword, and so these doctors are that write exemptions that are legitimate exemptions that are codified in the law. They're legitimate exemptions. Now the doctors are actually getting attacked. And then I think in this case, they said he wrote a fraudulent medical exemption. But what does that mean? Who's to tell a doctor it's fraudulent? If it's his medical opinion that it's not safe for the kid to be vaccinated, then that's his opinion. It's all subjective, right?
Well,
and so
there's a narrow band of what's an acceptable opinion, right? On vaccinations, it's that they don't really cause injury, right? The vaccine injury denialism is the official position of Dr. Senator Richie Dickie Pan, for instance, and many doctors.
Pan.
Yeah. So if the opinion is not their opinion, then it's fraudulent.
Well, yeah, if you're allowed to have your own opinion as long as you agree with us, it's basically the position now. And so doctors' opinions really don't look like they matter as much anymore in California. And I think it's only going to get worse.
Mm-hmm.
California's, it's amazing to me too, Robert. We're having our live event in California this year, and that area of the country is really crunchy granola country. So how does this lack of medical freedom when it comes to vaccines fit into that picture? Because there's so many other good things about that area when it comes to health. It's just, maybe that's why that's happening here. Maybe they see that as, if we can conquer California, the rest of the country will fall, because California is so into health in many other areas.
I look at what we're doing in California with the Truth About Cancer live event, and I think about RFK Jr., who I don't know if he's coming or not. That's up to you to tell us. Oh, well, he's confirmed. And here's a man of liberal credentials, right? Democrat liberal family. And he's got the intellectual integrity to call out his fellow leftist liberal progressives on this vaccine issue, where they have either cognitive dissonance or they're being paid directly or under the table to not see what they would normally say is corruption, the corruption of big pharma. On drug pricing or whatever, they're like, oh, we hate big pharma. But when it comes to the vaccine issue, he said that they need to come to Jesus. They need their come to Jesus moment. He said that. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, and that's where and we talk about this so much, but we need to continue talking about it. That's where this push to vaccinate just does not make sense to me if the medical doctors were being intellectually honest. Because if you just took the word vaccine out and they didn't know what they were talking about, and you said, here's a substance, here's an intervention, whatever you wanted to call it, that over the last 30 years, the companies that produce this substance have been, paid over $4 billion in court to families that they injured. Anyone in their right mind would say, wow, we got to do something about the safety. That's not safe. That's dangerous. We shouldn't do this unless they find out that it's vaccines, when at that point it's like, oh, well, then it's okay.
Yeah.
The damage is okay because it's vaccines, because they've been proven safe and effective. It's an intellectual dishonesty. It's a cognitive dissonance that doctors are under, I guess, when they are proponents of vaccines and not any more investigation, not making them safer. Because intellectually, anybody would look at that and say, wow, this is not safe. $4 billion, that's a lot of money over 30 years. We should do something to improve the safety. And so it goes back to, it's a sacrament of a church. The vaccines are a sacrament of this church. And in order to be a member of this church of pharmaceutical mysticism, you've got to push vaccines. That's
which, by the way, it's the state religion in violation of the First Amendment, which I said the real danger is not the doctor, although that can be dangerous if you subject yourself to ignorant ones that deny vaccine injury exists, but the government that would mandate, like in California and other states where they promoted this agenda. And that's where I say we've got to roll back the power of the state, because that's where this happens. If the doctors did not have the power of the state to inform them, much less to comply with, this would not be an issue. People that didn't want them wouldn't get them. People that want them would still be able to get them. But that's not enough. We have to force everybody into the pharmaceutical matrix. And again, this violates fundamental tenets of liberty. And those on the progressive left who claim to be all for freedom in certain arenas in life deny it in areas which they, for some reason, as I've said, abandoned the religion of their youth, whether it be Judaism, Christianity, Muslim, whatever it is, and they're adopting this pharmaceutical church. And it's not enough that they believe in it; they have to have you. It's kind of like if we were engaged in the Crusades, whatever religious belief we have, and we convert or die. And that's basically what they're doing with the power of government, convert or die, in a sense, with the claiming the Jews in Rockland County are unclean. I mean, these are horrific spaces and places, and we know where that ends up.
Yeah, and if it's convert or die, and someone quote converts, did they really convert? It's if it's no choice, if it's forced, then it violates freedom. It violates everything that this country stands for. And it's just interesting that you mentioned you have these people on the left that they're so into freedom of choice in other areas, but when it comes to medical interventions like vaccines or medical interventions like chemotherapy for children, there's no freedom. You must do chemotherapy. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I read a couple of days ago was the stage 4 cancer patient is now going to go to jail because he got a hold of cannabis in a state where cannabis was illegal, and he got busted. And so here's a stage 4 patient that was told that there's nothing we can do to help you. The conventional treatments have failed. You're going to die. He gets a hold of cannabis, and now he's going to go to jail. It's absurd that we don't have access to medical treatments that work, and we're forced medical interventions like vaccines that harm. It's really bizarre. And the more we say it, the more bizarre it sounds to me. I just can't believe that we're living in these days that forced vaccines are the law of the land, but you can't get a hold of cannabis to treat your cancer or you go to jail.
I'll hazard a guess that a lot of these people that are for forced vaccination have serious gut inflammation. Why do I say that? There's more and more science supporting the gut-brain connection, the emotions, the mental state of people whose gut ecology microbiome has been disrupted. You have an article here, Ty, this is a couple of years old, but I think it's still relevant. It says 5 ways not having a healthy gut compromises your health. And I know that some people say, well, that's just remedial. I'm like, you know what? We've got a lot of new listeners to the Robert Scott Bell Show, Outside the Box with Ty Bollinger. I think it's appropriate to revisit this from time to time. Do you have that in front of you? I've got the 1 through 5 listed here if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about them. I mean, I think the first one's going to be poor nutrient absorption, right? You can't absorb the food, right?
Yes.
So if you can't absorb the food, you're going to be nutritionally deficient. And we talk about cancer being a disease of poor nutrition, a nutritional deficiency coupled with an overburden of toxicity. Those are the two sides of the cancer coin. And you can put most things under one of those two buckets, right? Your poor nutrition, overburden, and toxicity. And so if you have a compromised gut, then you're not going to absorb your nutrients. You're going to be deficient in nutrition. And you're also going to have, serious weight gain. I just got the article in front of me. Mm-hmm. You can, weight gain and obesity is another impact on your gut. Mm-hmm. And we've seen, and the quest for the cures continues, and in the global quest, we saw the correlation between obesity and cancer. Yes. So I'm trying to associate these with cancer specifically, right? And so that's definitely a cause. And we've seen studies that show as weight goes up, cancer incidence rises with certain cancers that have an impact by your BMI, your body mass index, even though that's not a great way to measure obesity.
Yeah.
But we see that correlation, right?
Well, and Ty,
we also see autoimmune diseases resulting from leaky gut.
And Ty, I just want to reiterate something you said about absorption and malabsorption, because as you wrote in this article, the microbiota is not just about absorption, but it's about synthesis of certain key nutrients, vitamins, vital chemistry of the body. And if it's not there in the food, the microbiome takes the food as it's designed by God and converts it into these substances that we need. So, I always talked about malabsorption, but your article points out a very important, expansion of that understanding. It's not only what's in the food, but what must be synthesized via the microbiome that you wouldn't normally be able to get without it.
Right. So, another. That's another point that people need to remember because. Hang on a second. Sorry,
yeah,
I'm
who's
getting
calling you when you're on the
here and freaking me out here. How do I hang up on this? There we go.
Okay, you got it. You got to put your Skype on private. I sometimes forget to do that.
Typically do, but I didn't.
Red zone. Don't bother Ty Bollinger right now. He's on the Robert Scott Bell Show. So again, coming back to weight gain or obesity, you were just heading into autoimmune issues and those diseases.
Autoimmune diseases. I mean, there have been many studies showing a link between leaky gut and autoimmune diseases. Rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and so forth. So that's another effect that compromised gut can have. And then we talk about the gut-brain connection. They talk about the gut-brain axis. So if you have leaky gut, there is connection between that and your brain. As a matter of fact, they're even talking about the immune system of your gut being like a second brain, right? Your gut having its own immune system being like a brain. But that can result in depression and other types of mental issues, like because of these chemical imbalances that result from having leaky gut, because you've got like over 1 billion nerve endings in the gastrointestinal tract or something like that. And so, scientists have referred to these neurotransmitters as your electronic nervous system, or your enteric nervous system, not electronic, your enteric nervous system. So, mine's not electronic for sure. You can tell. But,
no, it's good. But this also kind of where I was hinting, like the Richard Dickey Pans of the world, they're deranged on this issue. And I have to think, if I give them any out, and it's not technically an out, but how is their gut health? Is that affecting their ability to think clearly beyond the pharma money that they're taking?
Well, sure. And if you remember in one of the interviews with Mike Adams, he mentioned, that these people that are on the other side, because of the fact that they've ingested these heavy metals, because of the fact that their gut is compromised, we literally are potentially dealing with people that aren't playing with a full deck. They literally are retarded in a true sense of the word, not in a mocking sense of the word, but mentally they are slower because of the fact that they've got compromised guts, they've got heavy metal toxicity, and it has literally affected their ability to think properly.
Yeah. So when we talk about microbiome, it's not just about digestion or elimination. It's about all of the things in between that. When you're either not digesting and breaking down adequately, but also synthesizing the things that our bodies need. We talk about production of neurotransmitters, relying on the microbiome as well. So these folks that are vaccine injury denialists, maybe there's a gut health or lack thereof connection to their deranged behavior on this. Now, finally, your number 5 focuses on, where people like you to talk about the issue of cancer. Go into that relationship. I think you referenced a 2015 paper.
I can't remember what paper we've referenced in the article, but there's many different studies that have shown a link between leaky, compromised gut and cancer. If you think about it, that only makes sense, right? Because the gut is what causes us to absorb nutrients. Cancer is a disease of a compromised immune system that you don't absorb nutrients, right? So that's one problem. Also, when you look at it being a disease of an overburden of toxicity, let's say that you have toxicity that's in your food, and you have leaky gut. Well, then the fissures in the gut lining can cause that toxicity to go straight through the gut, right?
Right.
And they can get into what? Where does it go from the gut? If you have leaky gut, Robert,
well,
fissures.
Partly it's going to go directly into the bloodstream and be carried even to the brain and nervous system, where they say, oh, yeah, there's a blood-brain barrier. Well, not for everything. Certain things are able to get in there. Yeah. And the inflammation. By the way, the 2015 paper is in your article there. I know it's an older article, a couple of years old. Cancer in the Gut Microbiota, an Unexpected Link. And that was the title of the article. I have it linked up. Those of y'all watching on YouTube or later on Brighteon. They revealed that in epidemiological studies, they indicate damage to the microbiome is a major risk factor in cancer development. So there are any number of reasons. Yeah, inflammation.
Right, your gut inflammation. Cancer. Dr. Russell Blaylock, who was in the quest for the cures, or is in the global quest. That was one of the things that he mentioned, and many of the other medical doctors mentioned that as well. Mm-hmm. Cancer results from chronic inflammation.
Yeah,
and that's what happens when you've got gut issues. It's a leaky gut. That's chronic inflammation in the gut, and so we see cancer being directly correlated to chronic inflammation, which is another reason that your oral health is so important, because you have someone that has inflammation in their mouth due to fillings, or maybe they have advanced periodontal disease where they constantly have inflammation in their gums, and every time they floss them, they bleed. Which used to happen to me. I had periodontal disease. I still do, but it's under control now because of what I'm doing. But there was a time 5-6 years ago where every time I would go floss the teeth, in between every tooth, the gums bled, which means I was in chronic inflammation.
Right. And I want to remind folks, too, about inadvertently thinking you're doing well, like eating whole grains or having your breakfast cereal and it's oatmeal. And if it's not certified organic, these grains, unfortunately, are being desiccated, dried for harvest uniformly with the use of glyphosate, the key ingredient of Roundup. So talking about the damage to the microbiome, glyphosate is a known antibiotic. It also impacts the glycine, where you'd have receptors. The amino acid glycine is often replacing it. That's according to Dr. Stephanie Seneff out of MIT. That's going to impact on the conformation. In other words, the form of the cells themselves create more leaky gut, like punching holes, as you described, through the gut. So this creates a system of as you said, chronic inflammation, malabsorption, things getting in, leaky gut that shouldn't be getting in, causing more inflammation and damage. Last night we made my son, Elijah, made a fire. We have a fire pit, and we had. Do you remember? Coast Guard Corey? Coast Guard Corey. Yeah. So he's in the Coast Guard, obviously, and he's moving cross country to Juneau, Alaska. Passed through with his wife and kids, and we had a little bonfire, so to speak, a little fire pit. And right next to us is a beautiful field where I believe they're growing alfalfa. And I wondered when we moved in, are they growing it cleanly? Are they spraying it? So last night, middle of the night, it was night, dark, and this old guy that owns the property that's been farming for years, and his tractor with lights on was doing something. It was kind of dusty. I'm like, is he spraying? I'm a little nervous while we're out here. And thankfully, we were told it wasn't. And today I find, no, he was actually baling the crops. He was baling the crops. So there are all these what we call hay bales, but it happens to be alfalfa bales next to us. And it was just dust from the dirt. So fortunately, we weren't exposed to glyphosate last night. That's good news. Yeah.
But that's one of the things that many don't realize about glyphosate is it is used as desiccant. And, it's sprayed on crops that aren't even thought of as glyphosate crops and at the very end of their lifespan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And after they're cut, actually.
By the way, somebody found the flip-flops I mentioned that didn't have the things through your toes are called topless flip-flops. No, they're not for your mammaries. It's topless because they don't have a thing to hold you stick your foot to it. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, don't do a Google search for topless flip-flops or you'll get in some trouble.
You probably will, or people are going to stick those flip-flops to hide their mammaries. Anyway, don't stick that stuff on. I don't want anybody to get hurt by this. All right, folks, we got a lot more healing to go on the Robert Scott Bell Show. Ty Bollinger's with us. We've got the TTAC Live event coming up in October, and we still don't have the page to get tickets up yet, right? We're waiting on that.
We will have the page up within the next 10 days. By Monday the 26th, I think it is. Monday the 24th, sorry.
Okay.
We should have it up.
All right. So the moment that is available, obviously, whether Ty's on the air, if it happens on a Wednesday or not when he's here, we're going to let you know about it. It'll be linked up in the show notes at robertscottbell.com as well. Truth About Cancer Live. It'll be about 2 years since the last one by the time this happens. Don't pass it by. These things don't come every day. So more on that later. Now, this is a kind of a shocking story. And it takes a lot to shock me, But when Super Don sent me this, I don't know if he sent it to you or you sent it to him, but I'm going to show everybody on the screen here. This is in the Daily Mail, and it says cervical cancer campaigner, 26, insisted on documentary makers filming shocking images of her lying in her coffin after she died as a warning to other young women to what? Get the HPV vaccine.
Yeah, it's really sad. I mean, this young lady, Laura Brennan, very young. I think she was
26,
something like that. When she died of cervical cancer, she was brainwashed into thinking that the reason that she had it is maybe she didn't get enough HPV vaccines or whatever, or talked to the doctors that said, "Oh, it's we can prevent this from happening to anybody else as long as they get vaccinated or whatever it might be." So she platform to entice people to get the HPV vaccine. I'm very, very sad for her and her family that she's gone. But this is not. This is like the shock jock type of way that you persuade people, and I don't think this is appropriate.
Well, and I think that the mainstream media, the medical community, governments that are invested in the shots are applauding this girl. Again, a tragedy that she died, that she had cervical cancer, and to use her death, and I guess that's, it's her choice if she's duped that way to say, hey, I want you to film me in my coffin after I'm dead to warn people that they should get the HPV shot. You and I can see through it, that horrible propaganda. But think about some other things that people could do, that they wanted to promote an agenda that they believe strongly in after they died. TMB, do you have any thoughts about that?
Here's one of the things I did not see in the article, and I haven't done any research to see what treatments that she used. But did she use natural treatments or did she use conventional? I guarantee you she used chemo radiation. So what if this same picture were used to say, look at what chemo radiation does to you? Look at the failure of chemo radiation. It wouldn't be quite so popular of an article at that point. So I think that it's a little bit disingenuous to say, hey, this could have all been prevented had I had an HPV vaccine. It's like, look, number one, HPV and cervical cancer, not a real strong link there.
No, it's not 100% causation, and not even close.
Not even close. And most 95% upwards of HPV resolves on its own. So you don't need a vaccine for it. So I think it's a little disingenuous to say, hey, look, this is what happens when people don't get the HPV vaccine. I think maybe more accurate is this is what happens when someone's diagnosed with cancer and they use chemo radiation to try to treat it.
Right.
But unfortunately for her, she's not around to share the rest of the story. And I feel bad for her family that they're missing a 26-year-old young lady that should probably still be with us.
Yeah. And what if, just to expand on that, somebody had said, I want a documentary film crew to come in and film my body after this flu shot in case I die from the flu shot, which happens. Name the vaccine, or how many ways could you do that? Would the media applaud that, or would they say how irresponsible? Because it's a matter of, does it agree with their agenda? Just like we've said about these doctors, that there are good doctors out there, like Dr. Stoller, who's been licensed for over 25 years in California. Suddenly they targeted him, interestingly enough, timed with SB 276. We talked to Rick Jaffe, Esquire, about that, the suit that he's filed on his behalf to go after the city of San Francisco for a nuisance. They said he was a nuisance for writing these things. It's like, how many adults working in the San Francisco city government are up to date on all of the so-called vaccines? Could they be also considered a nuisance?
None of them are up to date, I guarantee you. But, it's something very similar just happened a couple days ago, not in the vaccine area, but in Australia. Mm-hmm. One of the doctors that was in the Global Quest, Dr. Manuela Boyle, she was on trial for endangering her patients. And one of the things that they used against her was the Truth About Cancer Global Quest. They literally showed some of the episode that she was in, episode number 2, in court in Australia, to show that she was associated, it's guilt by association with TTAC, to show that she was associated with our group and we're some fringe, crazy conspiracy group. And she's endangering people with giving them the option to use natural treatments. Now, fortunately, it concluded with a good outcome, and I think that people are going to still have the right to choose natural medicine there. We learned all this today, but man, it's like doctors on trial now
Yeah.
for just being associated with somebody that wants freedom.
Well, they have the control factor, a license, permission slip from the government to do that, which would otherwise be illegal. And so this is how they control an entire profession, so that people who have a good heart, a good mind, that say, I want to be a doctor to help people, they go in, they find out how limited they are. And if they do the right thing, they get attacked like our buddy Dr. Buttar. And he has, use 6 or 7 figures to defend himself over years, millions wasted on just going, no, I'm doing nothing wrong. Everything here is helping people. And so we have a situation where the fundamental paradigm for healing in most of the Western world, being licensure, has restricted innovation, restricted doctors from doing things that would actually help and not harm their patients. And the governments like Australia, and we see that here in the U.S. with FDA and other things, where the good doctors are the ones that are under assault or attack, and the bad doctors are protected by their license.
Yeah, you just got to remember, in medicine today, no good deed goes unpunished when it comes to doctors that are pushing natural medicine and healing people. They're going to attack you. If look at Dr. Brzezinski. He was not attacked because his patients were dying. He was attacked because they were living.
Yeah. Oh, incredible to think about that. And folks, if we speak specific to the HPV, it's a virus. Viral activity increases in people who have selenium deficiencies, for instance. There are other herbs and supplements that can strengthen immunity, modulate immunity. We talk about beta-glucan from our friends at Better Way Health as an example. We've utilized silver hydrosol, and we know that the ions of silver are virostatic. If they come into contact with any virus, even the HPV, for instance, using it intravaginally, you can stop viral replication on contact very quickly. Now, as Ty mentioned, most women, or girls even, clear this virus within 2 years without any intervention. This is from the peer-reviewed published literature in mainstream medical journals. It's not a controversy. Yet their whole idea of injecting this HPV vaccine, whether it be HPV Gardasil 9 now, with more adjuvants to super irritate your immune system, to create more Guillain-Barré. We've seen deaths occur. SaneVax has reported on that. Infertility. Girls that had hoped one day to have a family no longer have that ability to have their own children. This is a disaster. Yet we have tools, we have options, but if you sell those options, you can't speak truthfully about them. That's why I don't sell anything here. The only thing I have that Ty and I share is the book we wrote together, Unlock the Power to Heal, and I'm grateful for all y'all that are still going up there on Amazon and Barnes & Noble to get it.
By the way, did you get the boxes I sent you?
Oh, amen. Hallelujah, my brother. Yes. And I was able to bring them to the Trinity Legacy Conference to meet a lot of the naturopaths that are traditional naturopaths, not allopathic naturopaths, that are going into nutrition. They're not doing injections and things that other naturopaths that are getting licensed are doing. And we were able to get great information in the books out to them as well. So thank you, my brother. You are wonderful for that.
Well, it only took me like 3 months to get them to you after request after request. So I'm glad you finally got them. But, regarding the HPV vaccine, I want people to remember 2 things. Number one, it's never tested against a true placebo. It's tested against a vaccine that has aluminum. So that it's a complete farce of a test when they say it's been tested against a placebo. No, it wasn't a true placebo. And then number 2, we look at the number of adverse reactions to the HPV vaccine. They're more than all the other vaccines combined. If I'm correct, I believe that there are more adverse reactions reported to that one, to those. I
think as a percentage, yes. I mean, the flu shot is being given more widely, so we're seeing numbers that may be higher for flu shot, just for in case anybody tries to nitpick. But yeah, I think in terms of percentage of those getting it,
people that it's given to, and you look at what happened in Colombia. We interviewed a reporter, Mario Lamo from Colombia, in The Truth About Vaccines, and he shared his footage with us and allowed us to use it. He interviewed. There's a group of 700 young ladies down in Colombia in a small town that they were forced to get the Gardasil vaccine or the Cervarix. I don't remember which brand of HPV vaccine it was, but they were all damaged to one extent or another. Many of them committed suicide because they were told they were making it up, that they weren't damaged, that they were just wanted attention. And so we were able to use some of that footage, and it's really powerful as he walks through this group of 700 young ladies, probably between the ages of 13 to 16, and they're crying and they're talking about how they were normal before. Now they feel the damage and they can't think, they can't associate, and they're told that they're lying, that they're making this up for attention. It's really heartbreaking.
Well, speaking of South America, we've talked about a lot of crazy things that have gone on down there, including the prohibition of getting a passport, a driver's license, a voter ID without vaccination. Peru now is in the news. They're declaring a health emergency. Y'all check this out, those of you watching on Brighteon or if you're on your YouTube channel. Peru declares health emergency over Guillain-Barré outbreak. I've never heard of an outbreak other than back in 1976 in response to the swine flu campaign of Gerald Ford, when they gave the swine flu shot and they had this massive response of injury and even death, more so from the shot than any swine flu. And now they're saying an outbreak of Guillain-Barré. We don't know what's causing it.
We don't know. Well, yeah, the vaccine is causing Guillain-Barré. The flu vaccine specifically has been shown to cause Guillain-Barré. Remember Desiree Jennings?
Yes.
So that was a patient that Dr. Buttar helped to detoxify, but she showed Guillain-Barré symptoms immediately after getting the flu vaccine. Mm-hmm. He helped to detoxify her. And then, of course, after no good deed goes unpunished. So then, of course, he gets lambasted in the mainstream and talk about how she's going to some quack doctor and she was making it all up and she never had Guillain-Barré or whatever.
Talk about quack doctors, Ty Bollinger. Listen to this. I don't know if you read this article, but this is what they claim. The precise cause of this disorder is unknown. We're talking Guillain-Barré. But most cases develop after a person has been sick with diarrhea or a respiratory infection. Now, when's the last time you heard of somebody getting diarrhea and suddenly coming down with Guillain-Barré?
Never.
No, I mean, now, if it's incidental to an adverse event like from a vaccine or, hey, how about an antibiotic? Could that also impact the nervous system? Drug interference, modern medicine interference, and yet they claim, we don't know what causes it, but we know that it usually follows diarrhea or a respiratory infection. There's no mention of the fact that the vast majority of the cases reported were after vaccination.
I would like to see the number of those 206 deaths that we're talking about there. It says Health Minister Zulema Thomas said Sunday, in addition to the deaths, there were currently 206 cases of the disease. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So 206 cases. I would like to look at all those cases and see how many of them developed within a week after the flu vaccine or another vaccine. I'd like to know that.
And then they also talk about that some research suggests that it's associated strongly with the Zika virus. And where did Zika go? Oh, it was the cause of all the shrunken head syndrome. And yet we recognize that it was more of a toxicological impact of larvicide dumping in the water supply, causing these genetic defects, these birth defects. Again, Zika has been around at least since the 1940s when they discovered it. We know it's probably been around forever, doing nothing. And they had to blame a virus because that's the cover story for all toxicological poisoning of the environment and the people and animals who live in it by, well, let's call it what it is, pharmaceutical companies, global multinational companies with no allegiance to any nation or state and anybody's health. Least of all, well, our health, but certainly their pocketbook is what concerns them.
Right, and so you've got the germ hunters, right? Virus hunters, we got the Zika virus hunters. You've got to have a virus or a germ or a bacteria that's responsible, rather than let's look at the internal terrain of the people that are being exposed to some of these diseases and find out why some are getting sick and some aren't. And the reason is because it's not a different germ, it's not a different virus, it's a different terrain. So why shouldn't we all try to make our terrains healthy to fight off the virus? It's interesting. I don't know how many times in the past few years, been at church, been sitting right in front of somebody that's just like coughing up a lung or sick as a dog or comes and hugs you and they're like blowing their nose everywhere. Getting exposed to viruses and bacteria all the time. But, I don't remember the last time that I've been sick.
Right. It's not no mere exposure or presence of. And how many of those people that were hacking up a lung, they had a lung infection, ended up with Guillain-Barré?
None that I know of.
Right. Look, diarrhea is your body's response to throw out something that needs to get out fast through the GI tract. It's a dumping scenario. Now, can that be associated with Guillain-Barré? I'm not saying it's not, but the reality is they're ignoring the proverbial elephant-sized syringe in the room. that is not unknown. It's in the medical literature. It's been reported in news stories throughout decades now, following certain vaccines or vaccine series, that neurological damage is a result, sometimes due to encephalopathy, brain inflammation. What causes Guillain-Barré? Maybe they have plausible deniability saying they don't know the exact mechanism. Okay, I can give them that. But to not look at, hey, why is this happening after we do these vaccine campaigns? Irresponsible is an understatement.
They're not allowed to look at vaccines as a possible cause, because vaccines are the sacrament of the church. So they can't look at that. That would be unfathomable. That would be something that they could not accept. They can't accept that truth. And so they can't look at vaccines, because that is the sacrament of this church of mysticism. It is the modern religion of vaccinology. So they can't look at it. So it has to be anything but that. They're predetermined. They have already determined what they will allow their minds to think. And one of them is not that vaccines are dangerous. So they can't go there.
No, they can't fathom it. No, folks, we owe it to our next generations to speak of these stories, to tell the stories. Yeah. Much like, the truth about cancer has done, brought stories to light that nobody would ever hear of, because the mainstream media would squash it before it would ever make the light of day. Or if it ever makes the light of day, it will be outlawed or ridiculed or ostracized in such a way that if you even think there's legitimacy to all of this, then there must be something wrong with you. This is how they play the game. Don't let peer pressure decide how you tell your story. We must tell our stories, and that's why I do this show 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. That's why Ty Bollinger is doing The Truth About Cancer, The Truth About Vaccines, all that we do, and coming together for The Truth About Cancer Live. We want to tell stories to one another. We want to hear from you as well, and so you submit those stories here at robertscottbell.com, or when we're at the TTAC Live. I don't know if you're doing it this year. Remember, over the years, you would gather stories from people that attended and would tell stories about how they overcame cancer without chemo or despite chemo. And these things we need to tell those stories and not stop telling those stories.
Yeah, we'll definitely be doing that again. It's a great opportunity for us to, gather testimonials of people that have been there and done that. Mm-hmm. And, it's interesting. The other side will say, well, that's just anecdotal evidence. But how many times have you seen someone on TV saying, I used this certain drug or this certain chemotherapy and I feel great? They use testimonials on their side too. There's not that many, but I've seen them. But it's okay if they use it for a drug. Yeah. But it's not okay if we have a testimonial of someone that went natural and healed their body.
Controlling the narrative, it's a desperate, straight attempt, and it's outright calling for censorship on many of these things, and through many ways, many mechanisms. By the way, final story here before we wrap up. And TMB, do you have a few minutes to do some extra innings with us, just unofficial stuff, before we let you go?
As long as I have about a 3-minute break in between so I can go.
You will have a 3-minute break in between, my friend, so no problem there. But yes, there's expert witness now claiming that Johnson & Johnson, again, another big pharma company, their role in the opioid crisis may even be worse than Purdue's. And as we find out layer upon layer